Well, the father of Florida shooter George Zimmerman, the latest to weigh in on the Trayvon Martin controversy, defending his son to an Orlando television station. Take a listen.
In doing so, his firearm was shown. Trayvon Martin said something to the effect of, "You're going to die now, or you're going to die tonight," something to that effect. He continued to beat George, and at some point, George pulled his pistol and did what he did.
Well, police surveillance appears to contradict those claims, showing Zimmerman seemingly without any cuts or bloodstains in the moments following the shooting. The case certainly has turned into a political hot potato. We all know that, reigniting everything from the race debate to the gun control issues of this country. But it has exposed ultimately a dangerous culture of conflict resolution in America. The opposite, if you will, of David Kennedy's principles of don't shoot. Think of the Florida laws as shoot. Let's bring in the Thursday mega panel, Karen Finney, Susan Del Percio, and Jimmy Williams. I imagine you three have been through this a few times over. Karen, when you look at, forget all the sort of details and who knew what and who did what, it is pretty much impossible to conjure a situation where killing another person is an acceptable mechanism of conflict resolution.
Right. Well, absolutely. But, you know, Dylan, one of the elements in this that I think is very consistent with a lot of what we talk about on this show is we didn't go from, you know, Florida in 2005 to now 30 states having laws like this by accident. I mean, there were the gun lobby, I mean, there were big interests that were behind pushing these laws. They pay a lot of money through the American Legislative Exchange Council to have access to legislators, to then be able to, you know, they create model legislation that then gets adopted in these states. So you're right in terms of the model, but we also have to say, you know what, gun makers and those who sell guns, you may not make the kind of profit that you want to make in pushing these laws if we decide we're going to go with a different kind of conflict resolution.
Do you echo that, Jimmy? In other words, through the lens of money and politics as the corrupting sort of grease of policy making, how insidious is the role of money in politics in the making of these types of laws, which I call shoot laws? They're sort of the opposite of the don't shoot philosophies espoused by people like David Kennedy.
Right. You know, look, and people know this about me, and I think I've said this on your show with you before. By the way, welcome back. Glad to have you back. I believe in gun rights. I don't like the idea of telling people that they can't have guns. My problem with this law in Florida, and apparently in a hell of a lot more states than Florida, is that it says to the average citizen, you can be law enforcement. And that's a problem. The money in politics issue, and listen, everybody has a lobbyist, and we've talked about this. The snack food industry, the guns, everybody's got a lobbyist. You just put up a stat that showed that $69 million since 1998 has been spent by the gun lobby. That's not a hell of a lot of money, frankly. The bigger question is something Karen alluded to, which is how much has been spent in the states. How much of that, who wrote the actual model legislation that's being pushed by ALEC, the American Legislative Exchange Council, that's now sitting out there in 36 states. It's the exact same language being pushed through 36 state general assemblies. And that's a big problem.
And what strikes me about the law, as it's written here, says, Susan, anyone not committing a crime can use deadly force if he feels, is the word, if he feels threatened with death or great bodily harm. Now, one person's feeling could be very different than another person's feeling. The way people feel is a function of whether they were drinking that night. Did they get a good night's sleep? Like, it strikes me as insane that any country would pass a law that says, based on how you feel, you can kill somebody and it's okay.
Well, that's obviously very subjective. But what's interesting is that the writer of the law immediately came out to say, this is not what I intended. And yet it's the result of this type of legislation. And you also didn't see the presidential candidates coming out and saying anything immediately because they were afraid of the NRA, because they're the ones behind the law, and going back to your issue with money in politics.
Right. Go ahead, Karen.
Well, I was just going to say, I mean, just to kind of, bring this back full circle.
Yep.
I mean, so it says, you citizen, how you feel.
How you feel that day. When I feel different from one day to the next myself.
That's right. How you feel that day. So you can say to yourself, you know what, I think that means I can go buy a gun. And who profits? Well, Walmart sells guns. Walmart's a big supporter of ALEC. I mean, the point is, by changing these laws, by lowering that barrier to it's how you feel, you're then supporting the sale of guns, which I'm with Jimmy. I actually support Second Amendment rights, but I don't support the idea that we're just going to let everybody, go around, shooting people if that's how they feel today.
Well, no, it says if that the law says if you feel that way, then it's okay.
Yeah. So maybe I'll feel that way tomorrow. I don't know how I feel today.
Depends how you feel. So we'll see what kind of night's sleep you get.